The forest breathed again. For the first time in what felt like centuries, the heavy silence that had drowned its roots lifted. The birds stirred, wings fluttering nervously as they leapt into the air. Leaves rustled in the branches overhead, carrying with them a sigh of release. It was as though the labyrinth's collapse had awakened the heart of the land, and life itself was returning. Honey inhaled deeply, filling his chest with a cool, damp scent of moss and pine. His heart ached with a strange relief, yet it beat with the awareness that something was far from finished. Metty perched on his shoulder, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the dim light that filtered through the canopy. She seemed calmer now, her wings folded against her back, though the faint shimmer of fire still lingered on their edges. Honey looked at her and, for a brief moment, allowed himself to believe that the nightmare was over. But then the earth trembled. Both froze. Honey turned sharply. Behind them, the collapsed ruins of the Crimson Labyrinth smoldered like cooling embers. Dust still swirled in the air, curling into the moonlight. At first, Honey thought the shaking was the aftershock of its fall, but then, from deep within the rubble, a beam of light pierced the ground. It was no ordinary light. It was sharp and alive, like a blade tearing into the sky. It shot upward, slicing through the canopy and cutting open the heavy clouds. For a heartbeat, the forest was drowned in brilliance, and then the beam dissolved into the heavens, leaving only a faint shimmering ripple in its wake. Honey's breath caught in his throat. What was that? Metty's tail flicked nervously. She leapt from his shoulder and patted a slow circle around the clearing, ears pinned back. Her voice was low, steady but touched with dread. It wasn't an ending, Honey. The labyrinth wasn't the prison, it was the doorway. The boy's hand tightened around the moonstone pendant. Its light, which had once glowed softly, now throbbed in sharp, rhythmic pulses. It beat like a second heart, each flare sinking into his chest. He could feel it, not just on his skin, but in his blood, in his bones. And with each pulse came whispers. They weren't words he recognized, but his heart understood. The path is not closed. The true depths of time await. Honey stumbled back a step, clutching the pendant. The whispers stirred memories of the Time Guardian's warning, of the Shadow's vow that darkness would return. His voice cracked as he whispered aloud, "So, we're not free?" Metty stopped circling. Her golden eyes lifted to his, and then to the sky, where the faint ripple still glimmered like a scar. Her voice carried a certainty that sent a shiver through Honey's spine. "No, Honey. This isn't freedom. It's the beginning." The boy swallowed hard. His heart wanted to collapse under the weight of exhaustion. He thought of his mother's face in the river of time, of the laughter he'd nearly lost himself in. He thought of the shadow, of the burning eyes that had promised to return. He thought of the endless labyrinth, of how close he had come to breaking. But then he thought of the forest, the silence it had endured, the life it had nearly lost. He thought of Metty, always at his side, fierce and unyielding. And he thought of the pendant pulsing against his chest, demanding courage. Honey drew in a deep breath, steadied himself, and lifted his chin toward the sky. If this is the beginning, then we won't stop. Whatever lies in the depths of time, we'll find it. Metty's ears twitched. Her tail swished like a banner, and a small flicker of flame danced across her whiskers. She leapt lightly back onto his shoulder, her eyes narrowing with determination. Then we walk forward. The boy took a step toward the darkened forest. But the forest was no longer the same. The silence had lifted, yes, but what replaced it was stranger still. Every tree seemed to lean toward them, their branches arching like arms. The leaves whispered with voices that weren't quite the wind. Honey caught snatches of murmurs, fragments of languages older than words, carried on the sighs of the woods. The air pressed against him, alive with unseen weight. Somewhere far ahead, a bell tolled. The sound was faint, distant, yet clear, so clear it sank into his bones. It was neither welcoming nor hostile, but it was undeniable. It was a summons. Honey froze, eyes darting toward the sound. The bell rang once more, echoing through the labyrinthine woods. Metty shifted uneasily on his shoulder. "They know." Honey swallowed. "Who?" Her ears swiveled, straining against the echoes. "Whoever waits beyond the doorway." The pendant pulsed harder, burning against his chest. The whispers rose again, threading through the bell's echo. Walk the path. Seek the heart. The spiral has only begun. Honey clenched his fists, then stepped into the shadows of the trees. The forest seemed to bend around him, shaping a path that hadn't been there before. A narrow trail of glowing moss wound deeper into the gloom, as though the forest itself demanded their passage. Together, boy and cat walked forward. And as they did, the darkness behind them closed, erasing the way back. The forest was no longer the same. The heart of time had pulsed back to life, yet its rhythm carried a strange echo, as though a second heartbeat lurked just beneath it. Honey clutched the moonstone close to his chest, feeling its warmth seep into him. Medi sat at his side, her golden eyes gleaming in the fading light, but even she seemed uneasy. The silence was heavy, too heavy. No rustle of leaves, no song of birds. Only the quiet murmur of the river. Then it came. A whisper. Not in the air, not on the ground, but inside Honey's mind. You have chosen the present, but time itself is never satisfied. Honey froze. His hand trembled on the moonstone. Who's there? Medi's ears twitched. Her wings of flame shimmered faintly, ready to flare at a moment's notice. From the trees ahead, the shadows shifted, not like wind-blown darkness, but as though the very fabric of the forest was melting. Out stepped a tall figure cloaked in rippling black threads of smoke, its eyes twin embers glowing red. "You met my brother," the entity said, its voice a low thunder. "The guardian of time. But I am the balance breaker." Honey felt the air squeeze around him, pressing against his chest. "The balance breaker?" "Yes," the figure hissed, stepping closer. "Where there is light, there must be shadow. Where there is choice, there must be consequence. You think you won because you chose the present? Foolish child. Every choice leaves a scar, and I am that scar." Medi leapt in front of Honey, her fiery wings spreading wide, burning back the shadows that tried to curl around them. Her voice echoed in Honey's mind. "This is worse than before. He isn't bound by time. He feeds on it." The balance breaker raised a hand, and instantly, the forest around them began to unravel. Trees turned to ash, rivers dried, the moon above cracked like glass. It wasn't destruction, it was erasure. "You saved the heart of time," the entity said, "but now I will show you its price." The ground split open, and Honey saw glimpses of countless moments falling into the abyss, people he had never met, futures he had never seen, pasts that no longer existed. All being swallowed by the void. Honey's knees buckled. "No, this can't be happening." Medi's tail lashed against the ground, sending sparks into the air. She growled, "Honey, the moonstone, it's not just a gift. It's a key. Use it before he erases everything." Honey raised the moonstone, but the balance breaker laughed. "Do you think that trinket can stop me? That stone carries light, but I am the shadow beneath the light. The darker the glow, the stronger I become." The necklace burned hot in Honey's hand. His heartbeat thudded in his ears. He closed his eyes and whispered, "If you are the shadow of light, then I'll give you more light than you can bear." The moonstone flared, blindingly bright, as though the full moon had descended into his palm. Spirals of glowing silver etched themselves into the ground beneath him, circling outward, burning against the balance breaker's shadows. Medi's wings ignited into a blazing inferno, and together they leapt forward, light meeting darkness in a clash that shook the very bones of the world. The balance breaker roared, stumbling back, but his form only twisted larger, feeding on the chaos. His voice thundered, "Child, you can fight me, but remember, I am endless. For every choice you make, for every path you take, I will rise again. You cannot end me, you can only delay me." And then, with a swirl of smoke and fire, the forest dissolved into a crimson labyrinth. Honey and Medi found themselves standing at the threshold of a maze made of glowing red stone, its walls pulsing like veins. Behind them, the forest was gone. Before them, the labyrinth stretched endlessly, with whispers echoing through its halls. Honey tightened his grip on the moonstone. "So this is the next trial." Medi pressed against his leg, her wings folding close, her golden eyes steady. "Then we face it. Together." They stepped into the crimson labyrinth. The walls shivered with life. The whispers grew louder. And somewhere deep inside, The balance breaker's laughter waited. The first step inside the labyrinth felt like stepping into a living wound. The walls of red stone weren't solid. They pulsed, faintly throbbing as though they were carved from flesh. A low hum vibrated through the air, almost like a heartbeat echoing from deep within the maze. Honey's breath hitched. His fingers dug into the moonstone, its faint silver glow the only comfort against the suffocating crimson light. Metis' ears flattened. Her tail lashed uneasily, wings tucked close. "This place, it's breathing," she whispered in his mind. As they moved forward, the labyrinth shifted. The walls closed behind them, sealing the path, and stretched forward, twisting into endless corridors. A cold draft carried with it a faint whisper, not words, but a sound like voices crying from beneath the walls. Honey paused, pressing his ear to the glowing stone. What he heard made his stomach twist. It was his own voice, screaming. He stumbled back, clutching the moonstone. "Meti, I heard myself in there." The cat's golden eyes flickered uneasily. "Not yourself. Your fear. This maze is alive. It feeds on what you're most afraid of." The whispers grew louder. The floor beneath them turned slick, shining wet. Honey's boots slipped, and when he glanced down, his blood ran cold. The spirals etched into the stone weren't patterns. They were veins. The labyrinth was bleeding. From the walls, shadows stretched long fingers, brushing Honey's shoulders as he passed. One of them caught his arm, ice-cold, firm, and yanked him toward the stone. Honey cried out, struggling, the moonstone flashing bright to push the darkness back. The shadow recoiled, hissing. "Stay close," Honey whispered hoarsely. They pressed forward. The air grew heavier, colder. The crimson glow dimmed until only the faint shimmer of the moonstone lit the path. The silence broke, not with whispers, but with a shriek. It came from ahead, deep within the maze. A bone-splitting, raw shriek that clawed at Honey's mind. Metis' fur bristled, her wings flaring with embers. "Something's here." They turned a corner and froze. At the end of the hall, hunched in the glow of the labyrinth's bleeding light, stood a figure. It was tall, its back bent, its limbs too long, dragging against the floor. Its head twitched unnaturally, jerking side to side, as though searching for something it could not see. Then it lifted its face. Honey's chest turned to ice. It was his face. His own eyes staring back at him, black voids dripping shadows, his mouth split into an unnatural grin that stretched ear to ear. The doppelganger staggered forward, limbs twitching like a marionette pulled by invisible strings. Its voice echoed, distorted and layered. "You chose the present, so I took your future." Honey's knees weakened, but Meti growled and stepped in front of him, flames licking her wings. The thing laughed, its jaw unhinging wider than it should, spilling darkness like tar onto the ground. The labyrinth walls leaned closer, veins pulsing faster, the heartbeat thundering in Honey's ears. Boom, boom, boom. The doppelganger's body convulsed, then split apart. From its chest burst long arms of shadow, each tipped with claws. The shrieking grew unbearable, rattling Honey's bones. "Meti!" Honey shouted, clutching the moonstone. "We have to burn it out, now!" Meti's wings ignited into full flame, and Honey lifted the moonstone high. Silver light and blazing fire surged together, striking the doppelganger. It screeched, thrashing, its form writhing as light burned through its darkness. But as it dissolved, its voice whispered through the labyrinth. "You can kill me again and again, but I am always here. Every shadow, every corner, every heartbeat of fear. I will rise." The echoes faded. The doppelganger was gone. The silence returned, but it was not relief. It was heavier. Watching. Waiting. Honey and Meti stood in the dripping crimson corridor, the walls still pulsing. Honey whispered, his voice shaking. "This place doesn't want us to escape. It wants us to lose ourselves." And from deep within the labyrinth, the balance breaker's laugh rumbled again, low, cruel, endless backslash. The silence was worse than the screaming. Honey clutched the moonstone, but its glow seemed fainter now, as though even its light feared this place. His chest heaved, his ears still ringing with the whisper of his own twisted voice. Meti padded forward, her paws leaving tiny streaks of ember against the crimson floor. "It wasn't real," she said, her voice steady though her tail lashed. It was just an echo, a parasite of fear. But Honey wasn't convinced. That grin, that voice, still crawled under his skin. "If it wasn't real," he muttered, "why did it know what I chose?" The cat didn't answer. They pressed on. The labyrinth shifted again. The corridor narrowed, forcing them to walk sideways, until the walls pressed so close Honey felt crushed between slabs of living stone. His breath grew shallow. He tried not to think about the heartbeat throbbing against his ribs, as if his chest was sinking with the maze itself. Finally, the corridor widened and ended. Before them yawned a vast chamber, a hollow cavern where the walls curved high into shadows. The floor was jagged, spirals etched deep, glowing faintly like open wounds. And in the center was a pit. It was not stone or earth but a gaping mouth, a circular maw of teeth carved from bone and shadows. It breathed, drawing air in slow, wet gasps. With each inhale, Honey's hair tugged toward the pit, as if gravity bent toward its hunger. Metty hissed, wings spreading wide. "This is wrong. This isn't part of time. This is something older." Honey swallowed hard. His knees wanted to buckle. "Then why is it here?" The answer came not in words, but in sound. 1,000 voices screamed at once from the pit. Men, women, children, beasts. Screams layered on screams, pain upon pain, until Honey's vision blurred. He clutched his ears, falling to his knees. "Make it stop!" The moonstone flared in his grasp, sending a ripple of light across the chamber. For an instant, the screams halted. And in that instant, Honey saw faces in the pit. Not strangers. His mother. His father. Villagers from the forest. And himself. Hundreds of versions of him, each one broken, hollow-eyed, mouths open in silent agony. He staggered back, bile rising in his throat. "No, no, this isn't real." The pit exhaled. Cold, foul wind washed over him, and the faces began to climb. Not bodies, just faces, tearing themselves from the pit's walls, dragging with them strands of shadow flesh. They slithered toward Honey and Metty, eyes wide, mouths gnashing. Metty leapt in front, fire bursting from her wings. She hissed, spitting flame at the advancing horrors, but the shadows twisted around the fire, multiplying. Honey raised the moonstone. His hands trembled. He thought of his mother's face, her laugh, her warmth. The labyrinth was trying to use her against him. He grit his teeth. "You're not her. You're nothing but a lie." The stone pulsed, brighter, and light speared outward. The faces shrieked, their forms unraveling into smoke. But the pit didn't close. It laughed. A deep, wet sound, like stone grinding against bone. Honey's vision darkened at the edges. He swayed, clutching Metty. "We can't fight it. Not here." Metty's eyes glowed fiercely. "Then we run. But remember, Honey, this maze feeds on what you don't face. The further we go, the deeper it digs." The walls shuddered, sealing paths, opening new ones. The only way forward stretched into a tunnel, pulsing red. The pit's voice followed them, a whisper that slid into Honey's skull. "Run, little thief. Run with your stone. Every step you take, you carry me with you. The labyrinth is not a place. It is you." Honey stumbled, nearly dropping the moonstone. His hands were slick with sweat. He looked down and froze. The spirals beneath his boots weren't just etched in stone anymore. They were carved into his skin. Black spirals spread up his arms, pulsing faintly, echoing the heartbeat of the labyrinth. Honey's breath hitched. "Metty, it's inside me." The cat stared, her tail low, her fire dimming with dread. "Then the test has already begun." Honey stared at the black spirals pulsing under his skin. They moved. Not like ink. Not like veins. They crawled, sliding slowly, almost thoughtfully, toward his chest, toward his heart. "No, no, no, no." He clawed at his arm, nails dragging across flesh. The marks didn't scrape away. They sank deeper. Metty pressed against his leg, golden eyes wide, fire trembling at the tips of her whiskers. "Don't fight it like that. If you resist, it'll only root faster." Honey's breath came in sharp, ragged bursts. It's inside me. How do I stop something that's already inside? The corridor shifted, twisting, walls folding inward like the ribs of some giant beast. The sound of bones cracking echoed all around them. The labyrinth wasn't stone anymore, it was alive. From the shadows ahead, a figure emerged. It was cloaked, tall, its face hidden. But its hands were bare, pale as marble, with the same spirals carved deep into its skin. As it walked, the walls leaned toward it, as if bowing. Honey froze. His stomach turned to ice. Meti hissed low, crouching. That's no phantom. That's a host. The figure lifted its head. Beneath the hood was Honey's own face. Pale. Hollow-eyed. Spirals etched across every inch of his flesh, like tattoos of rot. I am what you'll become, the double whispered. Its voice was cracked glass. Every step you take forward, every choice you make, feeds the spiral. You cannot leave this place without becoming me. Honey shook his head violently. No. I made my choice. I chose the present. I chose sacrifice. You're just another trick. But the spiral mirror only smiled, a long, splitting grin that reached too far. You chose wrong. It raised its hand. The spirals on Honey's arm flared in answer, glowing red-hot, burning his flesh from the inside. He screamed, stumbling to his knees. The pain was like fire burrowing through bone. Meti leapt at the double, her wings erupting in fire. She slashed across its chest with glowing claws. For a heartbeat, the thing staggered, smoke hissing from the wound. But then, its wound closed. The spiral lines restitched across its flesh. Meti hissed in shock. It heals, like the labyrinth itself. The double tilted its head. Because I am the labyrinth. And soon, so will you. Honey clutched the moonstone. Its glow sputtered, fighting against the spiral's pull. He forced himself to his feet. If you're me, then you already know, I don't stop fighting. The chamber shook violently, walls cracking open. From the cracks, dozens of arms reached out, spiral-marked, pale, dragging themselves free. Not one double. Not two. Dozens of honeys, all with hollow eyes and broken smiles, crawling forward. Meti backed close to Honey, fur bristling. This is worse than I thought. It's not just feeding on you, it's breeding you. The doubles swarmed closer, whispering in unison. Join us! Join us! The spiral is peace. The spiral is forever. Honey felt the marks on his body throb in rhythm with their chant. His vision blurred. He saw himself walking with them, eyes hollow, moonstone blackened, Meti gone. He clutched his head, shaking violently. No. That's not me. That's not. The moonstone flared again, blinding white this time, not crimson. For a brief moment, the whispers stuttered, the swarm halted. Meti seized the moment. Honey, listen to me, she yelled over the hum. The spiral wants you to see yourself as doomed. If you believe it, you'll become it. But if you define yourself, you can twist the curse back against it. Honey gasped, sweat dripping down his face. His fists tightened around the stone. Then I'll define myself. He raised the moonstone high, forcing the light into his spiraling skin. Pain ripped through him, worse than before, like his bones were breaking, splintering into fire, but he roared, standing tall. I am not the labyrinth. I am not the spiral. His voice cracked the chamber. I am Honey. The spirals on his arms flared, then burst outward in streaks of white light, slashing through the swarm of doubles. They shrieked, smoke erupting from their hollow bodies as they disintegrated. The cloaked double staggered back, its grin faltering. For the first time, fear flickered in its eyes. Honey pointed the moonstone at it, light blazing. You are nothing but the echo of what I refuse to be. The double screamed as its form unraveled, spirals collapsing into ash, sucked back into the crimson walls. Silence. The chamber stilled. The walls straightened. The spirals on Honey's skin faded, though faint scars still lingered, black and thin, like warnings. Honey collapsed to his knees, gasping, sweat dripping down his face. Meti pressed against him, her fire dim but steady. You broke it, she whispered. Honey shook his head, voice hoarse. No. I just survived this round. But the labyrinth, It isn't finished. And in the silence, deep below, the pit laughed again. The glowing moss beneath Honey's feet pulsed with each step, like veins carrying light through the forest floor. Yet the deeper they walked, the heavier the air became. The whispers that had once brushed against his ears now grew sharper, clearer, until they no longer felt like fragments of forgotten languages but deliberate voices aimed at him. Honey! The boy froze. His name had been spoken, soft, familiar, and full of sorrow. His eyes widened. It was his mother's voice. He turned sharply, but behind him there was nothing. The path was sealed, the forest a wall of darkness. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Metty's ears flattened, her golden eyes narrowing. "I heard nothing, but I smell something. Old. Bitter." The pendant at his chest throbbed painfully, and Honey staggered forward. The whispers swelled again, overlapping voices clawing at his mind. Some laughed, others wept, others chanted words that twisted in and out of sense. "You left us. You failed. You cannot escape. The spiral has no end." Suddenly the trees around them began to shift. Their bark split, revealing faces pressed into the wood, ashen visages with hollow eyes and mouths locked in eternal screams. Their whispers poured from the cracks like smoke, circling Honey. Metty leapt from his shoulder, landing in front of him, her fur bristling, flames sparking along her back. "Curses!" she hissed. "The labyrinth's breath lingers here. They're trying to claim you." One of the wooden faces moved. Its mouth widened with a creaking shriek, and black mist spilled into the air. The mist coiled toward Honey, tendrils reaching for his throat. He stumbled back, but the moss path beneath him pulsed brighter, resisting the dark. The mist recoiled, then surged again with greater fury. Honey gripped the pendant. "What do they want from me?" The whispers answered as one, their voices layered into a chilling harmony. "To walk forward, you must carry us. Our torment is your burden. The Guardian's heir cannot be free." The black mist struck again, latching onto his arm. Cold seared through his skin, burning like ice. He cried out, dropping to one knee. The forest roared with whispers. Metty lunged, her body blazing, slashing the mist with claws of fire. The tendrils recoiled, shrieking as they dissolved into ash. "Don't listen," she shouted. "They want your spirit broken. They want you hollow." But it was too late. Honey's vision blurred, and in the smoke he saw her. His mother, standing among the trees, reaching out with trembling hands. "Honey, come back. Stay with me. You don't need to suffer anymore." His heart shattered. He wanted to run to her, to bury himself in her embrace. Tears stung his eyes, and his legs trembled. The pendant flared violently, its light ripping through the illusion. His mother's face warped into the hollow mask of the curse, which let out a shriek as it dissolved into splinters. Honey gasped, collapsing forward, his body shaking. Why are they doing this?" Metty pressed her fiery body against him, steadying him. Her voice was sharp, unyielding. "Because you carry what they cannot. The labyrinth cursed them. They're bound to time's wound. And you," she flicked her gaze to the pendant, "you're the only vessel strong enough to bear their weight." Honey's blood ran cold. "You mean, they want me to carry their curses?" Metty's silence was enough. The moss path pulsed again, brighter, as though urging them to continue. Honey rose shakily, clutching the pendant. The whispers did not fade. They followed him now, woven into the rhythm of his heartbeat. And as the boy and the cat pressed forward into the forest, a figure stirred in the distance. A tall shape, cloaked in shadows, its red eyes burning faintly through the trees. It watched without moving, its presence heavier than the curses themselves. The bell tolled once more, louder, closer. And the whispers spoke in unison, a final curse that chilled Honey's soul. "The shadow waits at the spiral's heart, and when you arrive, you will not leave whole.